Did you know that there's one condition that can have a snowball effect on calcium phosphate kidney stones? It's called distal renal tubular acidosis, or dRTA, and it can pop up for several different reasons and cause recurrent kidney stones. If you're curious to learn more about this condition and what you can do to manage it, stick around for this video. Hi, I'm Joey Weichman, and welcome to Stone Relief. In today's video, we're going to pick apart a condition that has several links to calcium phosphate kidney stones, but it's not a disorder in the traditional sense. Distal renal tubular acidosis is typically the result of another ailment that develops due to the body's hampered ability to manage its pH. But what impact does this have on kidney stones? Well, to better understand this condition and its role in creating said stones, let's first define the condition. So, in the context of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to be talking about one of the types of renal tubular acidosis. So, on a whole, really this tubular acidosis, when we're talking about the kidney, has to do with the body's inability to remove acid from the blood, which is also known as acidosis. And as I had mentioned, there are several different types of this, and it all has to kind of do with where it kicks off from, basically. So, 4 types. Type 1 is distal, and this means that the end of the tubular system within the kidneys. So these are kind of like the functional unit of the kidney itself. So this is at the end of that particular process. There's also type 2, which is proximal, which is meaning that the problem is starting at the start of this tubular system. And then there's type 3, which is a combination of both distal and proximal. So a little bit of a mishmash, if you will, but this is also super rare. And then lastly, there's going to be type 4, and this is hyperkalemic, and this has to do with potassium and then its role in managing the body's acidity, kind of like in a secondary type of capacity. Now, the cause for renal tubular acidosis, or in particular the distal version of this, is unknown. However, it has been linked to several different things. Now, first and foremost, and likely where you're going to come across this as kidney stone sufferers, is related to some sort of an autoimmune condition. And the ones that are the biggest ones are going to be Sjogren's, which we have a video about if you're curious to learn more. There's lupus, and then there's also things like rheumatoid arthritis. But beyond that, it can also result from things like medullary sponge kidney, which we have a video on that as well. And then also things like cirrhosis of the liver. And then there's also certain medications that can lead to this as well. So non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like Advil or ibuprofen can cause problems. Antibiotics can also cause issues. Things like lithium, which is a not psychoactive, but psychiatric type of a drug, and there are a whole host of other things that can wreak havoc with regards to distal renal tubular acidosis. But what impact does this have on kidney stones, and why is it so prevalent with calcium phosphate stones? We're going to dig into that in the next chapter. Alright, so now that we know what renal tubular acidosis is, in particular the distal type, which is what we're most interested in, what impact, if any, does it have on kidney stones? Well, in particular, people suffering from distal renal tubular acidosis, or dRTA, are predominantly going to be suffering from calcium phosphate stones. Now, there are a couple of different mechanisms by which these calcium phosphate stones form. However, they're all kind of centrally linked together around this theme. So when you've got dRTA, you have a decrease in the excretion of hydrogen ions throughout your body. And hydrogen ions have an acidifying effect in contrast to like an alkalizing effect of like a bicarbonate, for example. So when you have a decreased excretion of hydrogen ions, a couple different things are happening here as it relates to kidney stones. So first and foremost, decrease in hydrogen ions is also going to lead to a increase in the alkalinity of your urine, because where hydrogen ions flow, there's kind of like this opposite vacuum that's occurring. So the body is increasing in acidification, whereas your urine is going to be increasing in alkalinity due to the lack of presence of the hydrogen ions in your urine. So you have more alkaline urine. And the more alkaline your urine is, the more opportunity there is for calcium phosphate stones to form, because calcium favors binding with phosphate in alkaline urine, in contrast to where calcium binds with oxalate in neutral to more acidic type of urine concentrations. So this is the first mechanism. Next, low urinary citrate is also observed in individuals who have dRTA. And this makes sense because citrate is an alkalizer. So when you've got an increase of acidity or hydrogen ions kicking around throughout your body, the body is going to take citrate from wherever it can get it from to try to buffer out this acidity, leaving less citrate in your urine, leaving you more unprotected, because citrate plays a protective role when it comes to calcium-based kidney stones. It binds with calcium or free calcium floating around, and what I mean by free calcium is it's not bound to any other element like oxalate or phosphate or anything else that it can bind with in the body. So when you have citrate binding with free calcium, you decrease calcium's ability to bind with things like phosphate and oxalate. So this decreases your risk from kidney stones. So when you have low amounts of it in your urine, you're not as protected as you should be. And then lastly, an increase in acidity in the body also relates to an increase in urinary calcium. Now, we've talked about this previously in other videos. An increase in calcium alone is not necessarily a risk factor for kidney stones. However, if you're eating the standard American diet, it will be a risk for kidney stones, because calcium is a stone-forming element when you combine it with things like oxalate, or in this particular instance, phosphate. So when you have an increased acidity in your body, urinary calcium is going to increase really probably for two reasons. First of which, when you have more acidity in your body, calcium is going to be stripped more efficiently and more aggressively from the foods that we eat, thus ending up with more calcium in our urine. And secondly, when your body is acidic, it's going to strip calcium from your bones, and that is also going to end up in your urine, where it has the potential to form kidney stones when it binds with things like phosphate in an alkaline urine environment. So this really on the surface is what is happening here that is increasing your risk for kidney stones as it relates to distal tubular renal acidosis. So what can you do about this though? Let's dive into that in the next chapter.
Just a reminder, this information is available in written form on our website. Find the link below in the description.
All right, so what do you do if you're suffering from distal tubular renal acidosis and it is causing kidney stones? Well, because this is not really a disorder in the traditional sense, as I had mentioned, it is usually as a result of something else, we need to go to the root of the issue. And what I mean by that is treating the underlying condition. So, if your distal tubular renal acidosis is as the result of an autoimmune condition, such as Sjogren's or lupus or something along those lines, the first place that you should start is with diet. Now, this is not something that's going to be talked about in mainstream medical literature or from doctors on YouTube or pretty much anywhere. But when you start to go a little bit beneath the surface and really start to get into some of these diet communities, you're going to find a whole host of people who have cured, yes, completely cured their autoimmune condition by changes to their diet. In particular, those in the carnivore-based communities, so just meat, no more plant matter, and animal-based communities, so a majority of it is going to be meat and maybe just a little bit of fruit or honey is the animal-based construction. These individuals have completely eliminated their autoimmune condition. And when you do that, dRTA goes away as well, because you've eliminated the foundational issue that is causing that condition. Next, if you suffer from medullary sponge kidney or MSK. Again, this is a diet and hydration situation. So diet, and again, going towards more carnivore or animal-based is going to do a couple things for you. First of all, you're going to minimize or eliminate the stone-forming elements that are going to be present in your urine. In addition to this, you're also impacting positively your urine pH. The more vegetation you eat, the more alkaline your urine, thus setting you up for calcium phosphate stones. However, the more meat or more, species appropriate that you eat for those of us suffering from kidney stones, not the entire population, just for those of us suffering from kidney stones, the more neutral your urine pH is going to be, and the more neutral urine pH, less chances for calcium phosphate stones, because that's just not going to happen. Calcium phosphate stones require alkaline urine, so you're able to control that. And then when you add in the hydration piece of it, it does a couple things as well. Not only is it going to help you manage your pain better, but also proper hydration, shooting for around 3 liters a day at about 8 to 10 ounces per hour consumption while awake, is going to consistently flush out your kidney of any kind of stone-forming elements that could potentially crystallize and lead to kidney stones. And then lastly, with the medications that we had mentioned. So you're likely taking a medication as a result of some other type of condition that you have. And I'm going to refer back to this. So if you're taking a medication, you're likely have some other type of condition. And if you have some other type of condition, if you focus on fixing the underlying issue, the dRTA aspect of this goes away, and also does your kidney stone risk. If you're looking to say a big F you to your kidney stones, join our free community at kidneystones.com.